Today, I'm going to show you how to spot a bad townhouse in Ottawa in about 60 seconds. Now, much like regular homes, most buyers spend weeks agonizing over the right neighborhood and the right price point. But once they're walking through the townhouse, all of the attention stays on the surface items. They're looking at the new flooring, the new counter, the fresh paint, the staging, and they miss the actual items that can cost them money that are a little more hidden from view. And with a townhouse, there's an extra layer to look at as well, because you're not just buying the house itself, you're buying a spot in a row of houses. And the exact same townhouse from the same builder, same year, same model, in the wrong location can really sink you if you're not careful. Now, much like with detached homes, the thing I want you to keep in mind for the entire video here is that the stuff you can see on the surface is relatively cheap to fix. A new coat of paint for the main floor will maybe be a couple of $1,000s, but a drainage problem on a tight townhouse lot or a special assessment you didn't see coming, if it's a condo townhouse, can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. And a townhouse gets staged, painted, and lit to keep your eyes on the relatively cheap, flashy stuff and away from the more expensive items that might not be as obvious on the surface. So today I'm going to walk you through exactly what I check and in what order before I let any of my buyers write an offer on a townhouse in Ottawa. And the order we're going to go in is this. Number one is we're going to check the position where the house sits in the row. We're going to look at the outside of the townhouse, then we're going to look at the inside of the townhouse, and then finally we're going to talk about a few Ottawa specific items that you need to watch out for. This is not a replacement for a home inspection, but it is how you stop yourself from falling in love with a townhouse before you ever get too attached or too deep into the process. Now, the first couple of things I look at happen before I even go inside the house. And the very first thing I do is I scan the row to get an idea of where this house lies in relation to its neighbors. And the one question I'm asking myself here is this unit's position quietly disadvantaging it? So first, where does this unit sit? Is it in the low point of the row where all of the runoff collects when it rains? Is it backing onto a busy road or a pathway or a school? Is it the house that catches every set of headlights whenever a car pulls up to the nearby stop sign and turns the corner? The exact same house in a slightly different location can really change how much things like this affect you. So for a quick example, I know somebody who purchased a really nice N-unit townhouse with a shared parking lot. There was also a bunch of visitor parking right in front of their unit, which was a big bonus at the time. What they didn't realize is that big bank of shared parking is also where the snowplows piled all the snow every winter. And this was something that sounds on paper like not a big deal because it's not for the entire year. But when you're living that way every day for a long Ottawa winter, it's something that really has an impact on your day-to-day life. The next thing I do after looking for stuff like this is I look at the neighbors' places as well. And this isn't coming from a place of judging how other people maintain their homes. But what I am doing is looking for patterns. If the row looks like it's tired and old, patched walkways, sagging eaves troughs, or uneven wear on the roofs, this matters more with a townhouse than with a detached home because often you're sharing all of these systems with your neighbors. If the roof on the townhouse that you're about to buy is brand new, but both neighbors look like they could have water infiltrating into the attics, because you're attached, this is something that could impact you in a way that you don't see coming. And honestly, that you can't really control either. And this leads us into the second thing that I check, which is what does the unit share with its neighbors? And the one that I start with is one that I already mentioned. It's the roof and the eaves troughs. So in most townhouse blocks, you're part of one continuous roof, and that usually means shared water management. Does the shingle wear look like it's even across the entire row, or is there one section that's clearly more worn than the others? Are the eaves sagging or overflowing in any areas, or are the downspouts dumping water directly into the foundation? On a tight townhouse lot, water has a lot less room to move, and it can be a lot less forgiving as far as drainage goes. And with Ottawa's unforgiving freeze-thaw cycles throughout the winter, water pooling in the wrong spot against the foundation can mean expensive repairs that you didn't budget for. The next thing to look at is the grading, and this matters for any home, but specifically for townhouses, it's a big deal to look at. Does the lot slope away or towards your unit? Does the unit sit lower than the ones beside it? Are you taking on all of the water from the neighbors' yards as well? Fixing grading can be relatively cheap if you're just moving some soil around, under $1,000 to fix something like that. But much like detached homes, if you end up excavating to fix the foundation or the weeping tile, you can get into the tens of thousands of dollars pretty quickly for a repair like that. Another important thing to check out with a townhouse is, does the backyard actually belong to you the way that you think it does? A lot of buyers will see a nice fenced backyard and assume that it's all theirs, but that's not always the case. A lot of Ottawa townhouses have easements or access rights for utilities or neighbors, which means that somebody from an inside unit can basically walk across your backyard whenever they want to in order to access their own yard. And this can really change how you use your backyard if you don't have that privacy that you expected you would. It can also affect the resale value because some people really do value that backyard privacy. A dead giveaway for this is if there are gates at the back and like on the side of the fences. This is often the case, obviously, that there's an easement allowing people to go across. And it's pretty normal to see this in townhouses because if you think about it, how is an inside unit supposed to cut the grass in their backyard if they don't have that easement access? So it's definitely something to be aware of because it is very common. So that does it for the outside checks. Once we've done this, the next place to go is inside. And this doesn't always happen in order. Sometimes we'll do the outside stuff after, but I like to start with the outside stuff most of the time because we can often rule a place out just based on that. Inside a townhouse, there are really two main things I look for apart from what I would normally look for in a detached home. So for townhouses, you do want to look for all the same stuff. You want to check out the basement to see if there's any sign of moisture damage or cracking. You want to look at all the same stuff that you would for a normal home. And if you want details on that, you can check out my other video on how to spot a bad Ottawa house in 60 seconds, and that'll go into detail. But for a townhouse specifically, the first thing I'm looking at is the shared walls, and this is a big one. When I walk in, the first thing I try to do is just stop talking and listen for a second. Can you hear the neighbors? Can you hear the TV? Can you hear the footsteps or their dog? In many townhouse designs, the staircases of the two units actually run right along the shared wall. So you're not just sharing the wall with that person, you're also sharing the staircase. And if you can hear them tromping up and down during your showing, there's a good chance that is not going to change once you move in. If anything, it will get more annoying because you'll be hearing it every single day. The second thing that's extra important to consider in the inside of a townhouse is the layout. Townhouses live or die by the layout. It's less about the amount of square footage and how well planned and functional the floor plan is. Is it chopped up? Is it open concept? Is there actual usable storage space? Is the basement a usable living space? Do the bedrooms actually live well, or do they just technically count as bedrooms? Like, are they just glorified closets? A townhouse can be perfectly fine on paper and still be a weak product in person. And these weak properties are the ones that get punished first when the buyer has lots of choices like they do in the current market right now. Now, another really important detail to pay attention to for townhouses specifically in Ottawa is one that isn't as obvious as it sounds, and it's whether or not the townhouse is a freehold townhouse or a condo townhouse. Now, the best way to look at this if you're just looking on realtor.ca is to see if there's any sort of maintenance fee. But to get an idea of what the actual arrangement is, you'll probably have to ask your realtor or the listing realtor to get a good idea. Now, with a freehold townhouse, you own the entire unit and the land. So there's no condo fees, and the things like the roof, the exterior are all your responsibility to maintain. So all that shared water and exterior stuff that we talked about is on you to fix. Whereas with a condo townhouse, which is very common here, you pay a monthly fee. The corporation maintains things like the roof, the grading, the exterior. Now, that sounds easier, and it is from a day-to-day, like you don't have to do as much work around the house perspective. But the issue you can run into is all of this maintenance is now out of your hands. It's in the hands of the condo corporation. And if that condo corporation has a thinner than is ideal reserve fund, you can get hit with special assessments, which are one-time bills to fix things about the condo complex that they didn't budget for or don't have enough to fix in the reserve fund from the condo fees. Now, these special assessments can vary widely. I've seen special assessments as low as $100 or $150 for some excess snow removal. And I've seen them go as high into like the multiple tens of thousands of dollars if you need to replace all the windows or redo all the roofs, for example. So it's very important that you take a close look at the condo documents that come along with the townhouse if you are buying into one of these sorts of properties. So the quick kind of 60-second scorecard that I use is the same as last time. If there's one issue, that's pretty normal. There's no townhouse, especially if it's a little bit older, that's going to be perfect or without any issues. If you've got 2 or 3 issues and they're kind of contained to 1 or 2 categories, that's cause for pause. Like, take a close look, make sure you get a thorough home inspection, and maybe hesitate a little bit before falling in love with this place. And if you see 4 or more issues across different systems, for example, if you've got a bad position in the row, sloppy water management, and a thin reserve fund and it's a condo townhouse, now I'm cautious and I'm questioning whether or not you would want to move forward with this place, even if you did really love it.